I had to talk about a story that's very, very important. And albeit indirectly, it involves Caitlin Clark, the Department of Justice, and quite possibly the President of the United States himself. Somebody got to say it, so I'm going to say it. Ms. Clark's targeting may reflect a culture of disparate treatment, and the evidence provides reasonable cause for a federal probe into potential civil rights violations.
Every WNBA executive should be terrified by the shocking revelation that Stephen A. Smith just made. He no longer only discusses poor calls. He is requesting that Caitlin Clark's situation be looked at by federal investigators. We are referring to the same Caitlin Clark who tripled team values and single-handedly generated a 601% increase in merchandise. Despite receiving 1.29 million All-Star votes, the woman managed to finish 9th among her colleagues in the guard rankings. Stephen A. believes that the government should intervene since something is wrong here. If you believe that the government should intervene, please leave a comment to defend Caitlin Clark.
Come on.
The golden child in her second year in the league, who was top 4 in MVP voting last year, the assist leader last year, a galvanizing talent that has done wonders for the NBA. If she is seen to be physically getting abused on a basketball court in a way that is such a clear and flagrant discrepancy compared to what happens to others, that man is not going to say something.
Do you want to know what is so incredibly frustrating about this whole situation? First, let's talk about the finances. Caitlin Clark joined the WNBA, but she did more than that. Overnight, she turned into its main source of income, bringing in enough money to make her untouchable. The information is astounding. Tripled fever viewing, doubled league viewership overall, tripled team value, tripled league pass subscriptions, and exponential growth in product sales. These bumps aren't little. Leagues hope to implement these revolutionary changes.
Clark has done for the women's NBA what Michael Jordan once did for the NBA. Made it more valuable, watchable, and marketable. Instead of protecting its transformative star, the league's leadership ignores the relentless targeting of Ms. Clark, treating its greatest asset as if she were a PR headache. That approach could turn into a legal liability for the WNBA.
Clark increased WNBA app engagement by 613% and secured endorsement deals totaling more than $11 million, numbers that had never been seen by the WNBA before. We are discussing a player who changed the entire financial landscape of women's basketball on her own. Every conceivable statistic demonstrated enormous increase that was directly related to her presence.
She joined the league last year. Ms. Clark's impact has been seismic. Merchandise sales soared 601%. Indiana Fever viewership jumped 170%. The team's value tripled. League pass subscriptions climbed 366%. App engagement rose 613%. And her endorsements topped $11 million. She's the economic engine driving the league forward.
However, this is where the narrative takes a negative turn. The league permitted her to take punishment at previously unheard-of rates rather than safeguarding its prized asset. The statistical proof is incriminating. Last season, Clark received 17% of all flagrant fouls. This is twice as much as any other player in the league. Give it a moment to settle in.
Let me tell you what kind of quotes Trump would lead on. Sophie Cunningham told the Wall Street Journal she's Caitlin Clark's teammate, the Indiana Fever. The star player of the league is not being protected. Rebecca Lobo, analyst, ESPN. What does she say? Every single one of those plays against Caitlin Clark has been a foul.
Consider the implications of this. Officials are missing calls all the time, and the athlete who earns the most money is getting whacked the hardest. You see the woman who increased your team's values being cheaply attacked by defenders. When it occurs to Clark, you're witnessing egregious contact that would raise red flags for more seasoned players go unnoticed. When you watch the video, it becomes impossible to ignore the pattern. Hard fouls that ought to have been egregious. Clear targeting that is dismissed. Late hits that just result in more play. Officials ignored the fact that the league's most valuable player was being handled like a practice dummy. It's not a coincidence. This trend shows how poorly the WNBA has handled its most important resource. There is a major problem with your system when your largest source of income is consuming twice as many egregious fouls as anyone else. The issue then becomes how a league permitted resentment and jealousy to triumph over sound business judgment. How can you see someone completely alter your economic model while neglecting to defend them from deliberate attacks?
By the way, when she was out for the All-Star weekend this year, because she was hurt, by the way, because of the roughhouse tactics all of those folks alluded to, the ratings dropped 36%. They still had over 2 million views, but they had over 3 million last year. It dropped because she wasn't playing. Now, I told y'all, Candace Parker tried to tell y'all, Rebecca Lobo is trying to tell y'all, the goose that lays the golden eggs, the tide that lifts all boats.
An influential opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal made the case that Clark's treatment should be looked at by the federal government as a civil rights problem. This was no nonsense from a random blogger. This was one of America's most prestigious magazines, and it made the WNBA take attention. The article was candid about what they witnessed transpiring with the top talent in the league.
Do you know what Gino Auriemma said? He said she's being targeted. I don't remember when Michael Jordan came into the league, guys looking to go out and beat him up. Only the Detroit Pistons were looking to beat him up. And then after that, the New York Knicks with Pat Riley and Ewing and Anthony Mason and Xavier McDaniels and Charles Oakley and all of these guys. The John Starks of the world, Derek Harpers of the world eventually, stuff like that.
Stephen A. Smith fully supported this when he said on air that federal investigators have good reason to become involved. He is no longer discussing poor calls. He is discussing recurring trends that can be against workplace safety regulations. People pay attention when someone with his reputation and legal expertise asserts that there is a case.
Ms. Clark's targeting may reflect a culture of disparate treatment, and the evidence provides reasonable cause for a federal probe into potential civil rights violations. Am I making it up now? Remember I said this months ago. Remember I talked about people being jealous. The Cheryl Swoops of the world and others. Remember I pointed that stuff out? Remember I talked about the rough housing?
We are no longer discussing sports commentary. We are discussing possible congressional oversight and Justice Department probes when federal authorities begin to inquire about internal communications and decision-making procedures. Do you know what happens? Overnight, everything changes. Each correspondence is carefully examined. Every conference is examined. Every choice about policy is closely scrutinized.
This would mirror the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission investigation into the Erica Hamby's pregnancy discrimination claims against the WNBA and her team. Congress and Labor and Justice Departments would be justified in examining the facts.
The main points of contention are disparate treatment and occupational safety infractions, the same legal structures that were applied in significant civil rights lawsuits. Federal investigators don't care about basketball rivalries or veteran player dynamics. They concern about whether someone's employment rights are being violated through systematic targeting and inadequate protection.
Think Caitlin Clark could become an issue of national, potentially international, and definitely federal proportions? You don't think so?
Consider the implications of this on league operations. Referee conversations, front office choices, and internal player protection measures would all be subject to subpoena authority by federal investigators. They could want answers for why the most valuable player in the league received twice as many flagrant fouls as any other player. They could examine whether the WNBA's poor response to blatant targeting led to a hostile work environment.
Senator Jim Banks' 2024 letter to WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert demanded answers on Ms. Clark's treatment. Congress and the administration should demand answers from WNBA leaders, investigate officiating and internal league communications, hold hearings, and insist on real reforms. This is in a Wall Street Journal. The Labor Department should review the league protocols for workplace safety. If evidence shows discrimination or retaliation, the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division must act. If leaders remain inert, Congress should reconsider the WNBA's special privileges, including its antitrust and broadcast considerations. Checking referees' work with NBA-style last 2-minute reports would be a meaningful first step toward building trust.
The WNBA's issues go far beyond basketball as federal investigators begin to inquire about hostile work cultures and systematic targeting. Instead of honoring its brightest star, the league caused an issue that may need to be resolved by the government. Not only is that embarrassing, it might be disastrous for operations in the future and the league's reputation.
17 flagrant fouls have been called against people for beating up on Caitlin Clark. That's practically double what's happened for any other player in the league. They have evidence to say she's being treated unfairly.
Do you want to witness jealousy in action? Take a look at the results of the All-Star vote. It's the ideal illustration of how Clark's own peers attempted to lessen her influence. The athletes had a very different message to convey than the crowd, who made it obvious who they wanted to watch. Fans cast 1.29 million votes for Clark as an All-Star. Not only is that a good number, she should have been the event's indisputable face because of the unprecedented wave of support. Nor were these votes insignificant. Through ticket and item purchases, fans were participating, paying attention, and putting their money where their words were.
That was the first salvo. I'm not asking you. This is Stephen A., baby. I'm telling you. It's the first salvo. It's not an accident that this is coming shortly after the WNBA players foolishly wore those shirts. As Candace Parker pointed out, pay us what you owe us, antagonizing the league, with pending CBA negotiations coming.
However, something startling occurred when the player voting results were announced. According to her colleagues, Clark was ranked 10th among the guards. The 9th. Are you suggesting that the player that attracted millions of new fans to the league doesn't merit the highest praise from other players? The woman who changed the whole economic scene is ranked lower than athletes that the majority of casual fans aren't even familiar with. Not only was this voting discrepancy disrespectful, the message was well-coordinated. It reveals everything about the dynamics of the league when players intentionally rank someone low but fans strongly support them. The difference between peer rejection and fan acceptance demonstrates the very aspects of WNBA culture that Stephen A. Smith and others have been highlighting. The data clearly shows what was taking place in this situation. The people who ought to have been expressing gratitude to the most well-liked player in league history for the increased visibility and income instead chose to ignore her. The increased contracts and media attention brought about by Clark's fame benefited these same athletes. They were unable to recognize her influence, though.
Co-owner Sheila Johnson questioned Ms. Clark's 2024 Time Athlete of the Year recognition. Ms. Clark shattered fan vote records with 1.29 million All-Star votes, yet ranked only 9th among guards on the player ballot.
The unpleasant reality of the league's priorities was revealed by the All-Star voting. Veterans were actively trying to prevent Clark from getting the credit she deserved, even as supporters celebrated her revolutionary influence on women's basketball. Basketball rankings were no longer the only consideration here. It had to do with gatekeeping, control, and a refusal to allow Clark to alter the long-standing order. The WNBA management don't want to acknowledge this. Keeping Caitlin Clark content and safe is essential to their future. Clark's comeback in 2025 marks a turning point. They run the danger of losing the golden goose that saved their finances, or the league changes to accommodate its biggest star.